Are we ready to get started? Can we hear now? Yeah, it's kicked off and yay. Well, thanks guys for coming. I know we're getting close to spring break and for some reason, nobody works during spring break. I haven't figured that out yet.
Stay out money.
Yeah, spending money instead of making money. I never understood that because I was a baseball player growing up always. So spring break, it meant I had to practice more because we didn't have school. So practice wasn't 2 hours, it was 3 hours. What? That's, yeah. And I needed that all I could get. Trust me. Well, I appreciate you guys coming today for the panel. And I'm assuming everybody's going to stay for the class, Rachel Adams Lee class. It's going to start at 12 o'clock. That's going to be phenomenal class. We got Mr. Aaron Hoover and the Heather Bolton as panelists. It is your first name, right? The?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
And there's actually no name.
That's what I thought. I wanted to be correct.
Yeah.
The
You're
Heather
really
Bolton.
wrong.
It's
Yeah.
hyphenated. Her middle name is actually Eat her.
Same
We say,
in the middle.
Yeah,
we
middle.
say both.
It's a long name.
Long name.
That's a long name, but it's okay. As long as I get the first name right. The, we're in good shape.
They all have really long names there.
I'll remember that. So we're gonna use this as kind of like we're gonna ask the panelists questions and we're also gonna mastermind around some of the questions that we have. I took some questions online that the one person, Derek, thank you for being the one person that put some questions online. to ask. So thank you for participating. We appreciate that. So we'll just get quick started and what I'll ask first, because I don't even know if it's one of your questions. But are FSBOs and expireds a good way for new people to get started to get business?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Here's why.
Yep, that was a common why.
Yeah,
Not common.
so the reason why is we're looking for people that are motivated to enter the market and transact, and expireds. They've already signed a contract with an agent, but for usually one of the few reasons it didn't sell, most of the time it's price. The most important thing we're gonna discuss with any seller is always going to be price. But many times agents will take overpriced listings because they don't have the skills to get that seller to price it up for the market. So what ends up happening because they overpriced it is it sits and it doesn't sell. They're unrealistic and really not truly motivated to sell it at a price that the market will bear. So it ends up expiring, and I encountered that myself many times. So expireds, they're motivated to sell. They've already signed a contract with the realtor, so that's great business to go after. And sometimes it's actually better to be the second, third, fourth, or even fifth agent to list a property, because by that time, the seller has been through all the feedback of showings. Their agents hammered them and beat them up to address the things that are holding the sale back. And then finally, they're just willing that they just want to be done with it. So there's that. And then FSBOs, they're motivated to sell. They put their home on the market because usually a life event or something's prompted it to. So that's lower hanging fruit than just going to a homeowner and asking them, do you want to sell? And FSBOs and expire, they're both motivated parties. So to me, it's lower hanging fruit.
Yeah. Heather, you got anything to add to that?
I would say that 100%, they are great for new agents. My first year, a third of my business came from first get by owners. I don't have experience with expireds. I've never sold an expired, but my first year I did 5 million in sales, and about 2 came from FSBOs. They do have their hand up, and I would say that one of the myths I think that we think is that all FSBOs hate real estate agents, and that's just not true. Some FSBOs just think, oh, well, I'll just try it on my own. If it doesn't work, then I'll hire an agent, but like, let's just see what happens. And so to get in front of them and show them your value, I think is huge.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And I'll add another stat to that is that realtors get 27% more for a home than for self owners do.
And sell 3 times as fast.
Correct. And sell 3 times as fast. That's right. So if they're having that issue with paying the commissions, you can let them know that stat. It's a little more than 6% or 7%. Or again, I'll say before I start, any commissions we talk about is for the example only. It's not a standard. Let's say that out loud, right? It's only for an example. So, but if they're concerned about paying 6%, you can tell them, well, statistically, we get, I don't even know if I'd throw 27 because that's almost an unrealistic number to some people, 12 to 15% higher.
And I would say in my experience, that is very true. I'm sure true in other cases. I've never listed a FSBO and lost the money from what they had listed on sale or whatever. I've always made them more money and covered my.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you. So we'll ask Derek's first one. So is this, you said, what script do you use, Derek? Is this for expired or FSBOs or yes?
Either one.
Yeah. So we'll go, Heather, what's a script you use when you call FSBOs?
Yeah, so my script, when I call FSBOs, starts. Hey, I'm calling about your house for sale at 123 Main Street. Is it still for sale? Their answer is yes. And I say, okay, awesome. Are you working with buyers? We just get it out of the way. I'm an agent. Are you working with buyers agents? Their response typically is, yeah, but I'm not listing my house. I say, okay, that's fine. But if I brought you a buyer, would you work with me? The answer is 95% of the time, yes. Okay, great. I would love to come take a look at your house. To see if it would work for some of my buyers, because I typically have a handful of buyers that are looking. And while I'm there, if your house does not work for one of my buyers, I'm going to bring you information about myself and what I do so that hopefully I can add value to you, even if I can't find a buyer. That opens the door for me to have a conversation with them when I'm there. And in all reality, I am looking at their house to see if it works for one of my buyers. I do have a lot of buyers that say, oh, if the perfect thing comes up, that I would do. And I've already told them that I may not bring you a buyer, but I am bringing more information about myself, what I do, I'll bring comps to make sure that we, kind of what I feel about the price. And that's a really good entry point. I've never had somebody at the appointment be frustrated with me because I didn't have a buyer or I wasn't bringing a buyer. I make it very clear that it's just me coming only for the sole purposes of giving you information, looking at your house. So that is the script that I use. That gives me a really easy segue to have that conversation when I'm there.
And that's a similar script that we use in our script practice, actually. It's a Tom Ferry script that his mindset is when he calls, is not to get the listing, but to get in a conversation because they're just like you said, you may have buyers, if not my brokerage will have buyers, and I like to know all the houses in the marketplace, whether I have a buyer or not. I still like to know what your house is like. Can I come look at your house? And of course that leads into conversation and I love that you leave value, always leave value. Like she does a CMA for the houses maybe, which is awesome. It's staging tips. I've heard people leave staging tips at the houses to help them sell their house faster, curb appeal tips, things like that. And I'm assuming you follow up.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no point in doing it. You're
Yes.
wasting your time.
Yes, I agree. But, and bowl's coming up, by the way, and not but. A lot of people don't follow up. If they get the first no, or if they go by and don't have a positive experience, they usually don't come back. But schedule yourself to come back in a week or 2 weeks and check on them, bring them something else about it. Always come from contribution. You're coming to try to help them. Thank you, Heather. Expires. What's your script for expires, Aaron? List with me now.
Yeah, hey, I noticed that, your home was listed, but it's no longer on the market today. Were you aware? So I always start there. I always want to make sure that they know that they're home. And sometimes they're surprised, like they don't realize their listing expired, their agent, never told them. Maybe they try to get them to lower the price or have a condition. And agents get frustrated, they don't know what to do next, so they'll just quit communicating. That's probably one of the biggest complaints about realtors is that we are horrible communicators. And so, here's the thing about expireds right now, there aren't many in this market. There haven't been for the last several years. Now, when I got into the business, there were a lot of expires. The average days in the market was 120 days. There were usually 3 or 4 price reductions before you would procure a buyer who would write an offer. And so listings expired a lot because our inventory was around 7, 8, even 9 months supply, whereas we're around 1 month now. So buyers had a lot more options to choose from. So therefore, a lot of listings would expire, so we would go after those. The first thing I would say to them is, hey, calling about your property being listed at 1234 Main Street. Were you aware that it's no longer actively being marketed on the market? It's not MLS. And that just allows them, like, it's either no or yes. And then, so if the answer is yes, we were aware. And so then my next question is, are you going to be interviewing aggressive agents to get the job done for you this time? It's really direct, but that's my approach, and that's how I like to be. So let's just cut through all the minutia of this and find out, is this going to be worth my time, energy, and money to continue to prospect to? And the expireds, I think you can run to and ask them for the business a lot sooner. The FSBOs, you have to date them. You can't run in and ask for the, make a marriage proposal, because they don't hate realtors, they just simply don't. They're trying to save money. They don't have the commission. So they're a longer nurture than expireds are. Expireds are more likely to, they might want a short break, but if you ask them the right questions, I think you can convert them and get them to be into the market much quicker. But again, you need to know what's going on in the market. Like, if they're pending to their area, that's a missed opportunity for them. So that might be a conversation you can start with Expire and get them to, instead of waiting to take a break because they are burnout, frustrated. You have to give them hope, and be able to identify why you think. First of all, I was asking, why do you think your home didn't sell? How many showings did you have? What kind of feedback are you getting from the showings? And then from there, I usually do my own analysis, do a CMA, look like, oh my God, these photos are horrible. I don't tell them that, but it could be, it's either marketing, it wasn't marketed effectively, it wasn't priced appropriately, or the condition wasn't in alignment with what the buyers are expecting in the market today. It's always going to be one of those 3 things that hold that to say.
Here, Vicky asked, expired. Do you knock on the door, or how do you get their number?
Yes. So you can use the easiest way is I use Mojo, and it pulls that data. So I get cancels, expireds, withdrawals, FSBOs, even pre-foreclosures. I just subscribed to that recently. But so you can either use like a data provider like Bolton 7 or Mojo, or even the RedX, or you can go into Forewarn. If you know a property, go to the MLS, you see what expired today, go research the tax record, find the deed of owner, and then put their name in Forewarn, make sure the address lines up, and then you get a phone number that way. Or door knock, or mail them a packet.
And even whitepages.com. I mean, sometimes you can simply just Google an address or a name, and you'll get phone numbers. It's odd how quickly and easily you can get information.
Forewarn's amazing, because I've had data pulled from Mojo that isn't good, or I get no phone number. Well, then I know the owner's name and the address, so I'll just go into Forewarn, run the name, the city, and I've gotten good numbers and gotten in touch with homeowners where that information wasn't available anywhere else.
It's good for your safety too.
It is.
Yeah.
See, and Google My Prospect.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Good question, Vicky. Thank you.
I would add to that too.
Yep.
So my parents' home in Tennessee expired. And so I just found them a new agent. And the thing that my mom said when she interviewed the new agent is she was like, he just brought so much. Like, we had a 2-hour conversation. He knew what he was talking about. He had great stats. He had a big presentation. And so I think too, like, knowing that when houses expire, you're not the only phone call, or FSBO too, you're not the only phone call, you're probably one of many. So how do you make yourself stand out? Outside of obviously follow-up is huge, because most agents won't. But knowing what you're talking about, being confident in their area and their market, Because my mom didn't feel like her previous agent really knew the market, of their town, just 'cause it's a small town. And then the new agent just came in, he had everything that she wanted as far as like presentation wise, and so I would say like, make sure that all of that stuff is, like you're confident with that.
Yeah, good. So an objection handler higher up than on the expires. When you call an expired listing and they say, you ask if they're gonna relist, a lot of times they do, so I'm just gonna relist with the agent that had it listed before.
Well, I would say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result. So the question, and I don't say that, the question I ask them is, what are they gonna do differently this time to get a different result?
Yeah,
Speaking of FSBOs,
And usually they're like, no, they don't know.
they don't know. Yeah.
So, are you familiar then, like, once they don't have an answer for that, which is 9 times out of 10.
Mhm.
Then I ask, are you familiar with the things that Keller Williams does to get so many homes sold? And last year, like, our agency sold over 2,000 homes, and then the answer is no, we not, well, that's exactly why we need to meet.
Yeah. Yeah,
Would
that's
you be
exactly.
open to hearing about a program, a marketing platform and strategy that would give you the result you're looking for this time?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Vicky, for the good question. Do you all know your conversion rate? Oh, did I miss something? Oh, sorry.
So you said you typically, so if there's a percent of white owner, you typically get more. So is that because you're doing your CMA first and you know that your house, so if you see one that's clearly overpriced, you just not pursue it?
No, I think that you're honest. So for me, what is the driving factor in my business and in my life is, that I'm gonna help people. And moving, selling homes and buying homes are just typically a very monumental thing in people's lives. And so if I can help make that transition smooth, then obviously that's what I wanna do. And so, I'm not going to buy listings. I'm not going to say that I can get you more than I can, and I'm very clear about that. So I'll do a CMA. I bring it, I go through the house, we talk about it, I figure out what their goals are. And at the end of the day, when we look at the CMA and say, I think that they're 20 grand overpriced. I tell them, I say, based on these numbers, where I would put your house is here. I understand that that's less than what you're thinking. And then I go into stats, like, okay, this is what, but if we do list, if ever you decide to go down that route, I would expect to have your home sold in a weekend. And then we could get you on to Florida and be with your grandkids. And so then we just start talking logically, like, what are your goals? And a lot of times those things, are bigger than money, because at the end of the day, they're seeing the comps. I'm not making this stuff up. The reality is this, and how can I do it, make it the most money possible, do it in a short period of time and get a great fee. And so then it becomes less about money and more about the other factors.
Cause there's just been this house in my neighborhood that I knew they had it list for sale by owner too high.
Yeah.
And that agent came in and listed it too high, and I just constantly seeing, so I just didn't know, like, so.
Well, I think
feel
that you
myself.
can say that too. I think that you can say, I'm sure that you're getting a lot of calls, and there are some agents probably that will tell you that you can get this.
Mhm.
And what's gonna happen is you're gonna list it, and then you're gonna drop the price, and drop the price, and drop the price. I see it over and over again. Because we all know that there are agents that do that.
They did.
And so I think that you call them out, say, hey, I know that there are agents that are gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen because it's not realistic. What I'm gonna do is this, and then ultimately, we're gonna get more money for your house because we're gonna price it right. We're going to get more interest that way, which is going to raise, the probability that we're gonna get multiple offers versus listing it too high, having to drop it, and then somebody coming in low. Right, so.
I'm a little more pointed on that too, because Heather's exactly right. There's agents that will come in and buy the listing, and I always start off with, And I would love to get you that price because ultimately my commission reflects that and give you the highest price. But I can't with integrity and in good faith list at a price that I know it's not going to appraise at or even sell at. So, when that agent comes to you and tells you that they can sell it for that price, here's what I want you to do. When you sign the listing contract with the further conditions, right in there that if any time during this contract, I ask you for a price reduction, this contract may be voided because you're a liar. And that's really pointed, but the truth is, do you want to list with somebody who has integrity? Or do you want to list with somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear, even if that's not going to become a reality for you?
Just to get you under contract.
Exactly, just to get you in the contract.
Like your stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's stuff.
And I lived that life for a while. I worked with an agent who did that, and I was the guy that had to make the call every month to get price reductions. So I got really good at price reductions. But I didn't sleep well at night, so I just reached the point like I can't do this anymore. When I go and meet with somebody, I'm gonna give them the truth. Because that's what you hired me to do, is give you my expertise, my honest professional opinion. And I'm not going to inflate prices for the sake of simply giving the business and then hammer you for price reductions. It doesn't feel good, and you don't get repeat referral business that way, because at the end of the day, they look at you as a sleazy salesperson, and it's just really hard to build a business that way. You're always going to be chasing, and I think all of us want to build momentum and start attracting business, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to get repeat referral business, and at some point, 5-7 years into this, our phone rings. We get that surprise call like, hey, so-and-so told me to call you, I need your help buying or selling the home.
So to that point, have you gotten repeat business from FSBOs?
My first listing ever was a FSBO. I've transacted with them 3 times.
Yes, anytime.
there you go. And I think what Aaron goes to is our Y4C2Ts, is customers always come first. That doesn't mean they're right, but it means they come first, and in coming first, we have to be honest with them all the time.
Yeah, I often ask this, like, especially because you have a good point, Brittany. Sometimes they're like, how did you come up with the price? That's a great question to ask. Like, yeah, just wondering how did you come up with your price? It doesn't have to be anything contentious at all. It's just, I'm coming from a place of curiosity. Because a lot of times they don't have access to the data that we do, and so they're winging it. Maybe they base it off what Zillow said it's worth. Maybe it's a friend or a neighbor, or they've seen a home down the street that sold for that price, but it has a full finished basement versus a partial unfinished. So those aren't really comps, or there's like such a huge adjustment there that it's going to be really hard to justify an inflated value. And that's where our value really comes into play, as we are the experts, and we can really hone things in for them. Like Heather said, it really comes down to what are their goals, and sometimes their goals are bigger than the financial side of things. And I like what you said about helping them get down to Florida to be close with grandkids. We need to ask deeper questions as we're getting in a relationship with the FSBOs and the expires, but especially the FSBOs, because nobody's going to do business with us until they know us, like us, and trust us.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Any more questions on that? Vicky, Boone, Leah, excuse me. Leah. If they're adamant about a certain price that you feel is way too high and the property won't appraise, do you take the listing anyway?
I've turned listings down, but again, this is just a conversation. So if I know I'm going to compete against somebody who's going to list at that price, I'll tell them like, hey, I'm okay with testing the water at your price, but let's talk about that. These are my standards, right? If we're not getting showings or we're not getting offers, then we're going to have a price reduction or adjustment conversation. Does that sound fair? And they'll say, well, sure. And I'm not asking you to give your home away, but at the end of the day, it's going to have to sell at a price that the market will bear. And so while I can appreciate a very aggressive and optimistic price as we enter the market, my standard is if we go 2 weeks without a showing, but we have 10 showings without an offer, you're overpriced. And so if we reach that point, are you going to be willing to adjust your price to something that will procure an offer? And if the answer is no, then you may want to turn that listing down. But I'm also I want to be transparent. I don't want to lose business over they're not fully confident yet. They don't fully trust that, I'm gonna be able to give them the highest price yet. Now, some people are unrealistic. I'm willing to work with that, coach them through that. And I will take a listing that might be slightly overpriced, but I set the expectation that if we don't get an offer within 2 weeks, we're lowering the price. And if the answer to that is no, then I'm not gonna list it at that price. I won't take it. I walked away. And that too, like in this market, not so much because somebody else will take it and then they lower the price, lower the price, lower the price, and then it goes under contract. But I've been the fifth realtor on expired listings, and the example I think of happened outside of Bluff. Beautiful property on acreage. I went and met with those people 5 years before I listed and sold it. Again, I went and met with them. They were very unrealistic on the price. Another agency came in and said, we'll list it at that price. We think we can get it. They didn't get it. It was absurd. They wanted well over $1 million. And I told them like this property was say 550 property best. They wanted to list it at $1 million. So 5 years later, they called me. I had followed this property. They listed with a different agency every year, 12-month contract. And the lady called me up and said, hey, Aaron, how come you never call us each time our listing expired? And I said, because you weren't ready yet. And I said, when I initially met with you, I told you this was the price, and you guys didn't trust me then. And so here we are now. The only way I'll meet with you is if you guys agree at the end of that meeting to list it at the price that I come up with. Because I said up until now, your way hasn't worked. So you have to be very direct with these people. You can't be afraid to offend people because they're hiring you for your expertise. They're hiring you for the truth. So we owe them that, right? And so I went out and met with them. They listed it in my price. It was slightly above what it would have been 5 years earlier, but the market still wasn't like it has been the last 3 or 4 years. You know, prices weren't increasing by that much. So I had them under contract within 2 weeks and we sold in like 45 days. And so my point to all that is it's okay to walk away from these listings because guess what? The expectation is you're going to spend your own marketing dollars on that. And that can cost you thousands of dollars. Facebook, Google ads, postcards, open houses, videos, photography, that stuff isn't free. So make sure that if you are going to take that type of listing, that you're writing in the further conditions of your contract that you'll be reimbursed if they cancel for any reason at the time. Just to protect yourself, because none of us are in the business to lose money or even break even. But if you go down this path where you're taking overpriced listings and you're going all in on marketing, you're going to run yourself out of business before you know it.
Yeah, I would say 2 things on that. For that, so I've got a listing that is on and off the market, that I took a couple years back, listed it at what they wanted, which was probably $300,000 over what it's worth. And to this day, I still have to update photos. And I mean, I've got thousands of dollars marketing in this property that's probably worth $900,000 that we've back and forth 3 years, thousands of dollars. Finally this year he said, okay, I'm ready to sell. Like, what do we need to do? And so as spring coaches, we're relisting it, but I'm there because of mistakes that I made then. You're kind of stuck at that stage. Thankfully, my guy stayed with me, even though I wasn't honest at first, but I was new and I was self-conscious, and it's hard when you're new to price $1 million property. You know, within those few hundreds of thousands of dollars, because you're like, well, what? You know, I don't know at this price point. So I would say, like, also don't be afraid to bring in other people that may know that better. But I would say I also do what Aaron does. I just had one recently that another agent that lived in the neighborhood said, oh, we can list it at this price. I was like, that's too high. But I want the listing. It was somebody that I knew well. And so what I did, I actually knew the agent that he told me who it was. And so what I did is I focused on marketing, and I printed out 2 MLS sheets, and I put one of mine and I put one of the other agents. The other agents had misspelled words. The photos were taken with their Nokia phone, or, you know, not even big
Polaroid.
you know, fat thumb it. We all seen them. And I just said, you know, here's the deal. these are the differences in marketing. I would never put another agent down, but like, here are the two. And I will list it. He gave like a range, and I said, I'll list it within this range, and if we don't have an offer in the first weekend, we're dropping it $10,000. Thankfully, we did get an offer in that first weekend, low, and then it appraised even lower. But at least he knew that that was a possibility because of the conversation. So I would say I do what you do, maybe a little bit more aggressively, because I do think that we're still in the market. And then if you're priced right, that it should sell at the end.
I have a question on, I don't understand outside of like an FHA has to go by the last appraisal. Other than that, why is it not pretty standard to just do a pre-listing appraisal? That way we don't run into appraisal cuts.
Because every appraiser is different, and you can have two appraisers tell you 30 grand apart. So I'm not gonna have my clients pay for a $400 appraisal when some lowball appraiser is gonna come in later and tell them a completely different price.
But when, I guess my question is then not to like, you know, do anything without integrity, but when you do a pre-listing appraisal, you directly hire an appraiser? Because you're not.
Oh, you can as the agent, but the banks cannot, they have to use a third party.
That's what I'm saying, so like as an agent, if I have a trusted appraiser and I can hire them directly as part of my listing package. You know, and again, he's not manipulating things, but you know, I trust him and know he's not a low baller, he's a,
Yeah.
you know, why is that? I guess I just don't understand why, that way we don't run into appraisal issues and as far as
You
comms.
will though, because the bank is hiring their own third-party appraisers to protect their interest. They're making an investment, right? They're loaning money on that property. So that's an asset that they technically own. And they're wanting to make sure that the money they loan is it's worth that, right?
Yeah.
So they're not gonna use your appraiser.
Will they
Your
take that
appraisal.
into consideration and kind of?
Because an appraisal is one person's opinion of value, just like when you go out and meet the seller and do a CMA, that's our opinion of value. They'll hire 3 agents, and I can guarantee you, they might get close on a couple of them.
Yeah.
But they're going to get a variety of opinions on the value. And even to Heather's point, she went out, this agent gave a range and she thought it was inflated. So appraisers are much the same as realtors in that regard.
Yeah, I'd probably,
Notice the last few transactions, people are just purchase agreement appraisers as well. I don't know if they're seeing these purchase agreement prices, but they literally just come in right at the PA
Yeah.
anyway. So,
I guess my concern would be, what would the client think if your appraiser came in and said 320, then when they got the loan and the bank came in at 295?
Well, I mean, I'm doing a transaction right now that, we just got the appraisal back. It came back 20 grand under what my client asked for. The other agent replied and said, can we see a copy of that appraisal, because they just did an appraisal before we listed it and an appraisal more than that. And so it's like, well, at what cost? Like, it's a waste of your money, it's a waste of your client's money. Because it doesn't hold any weight. Like, sure, they can tell you what they think the value is, but like, you could do that for free. So it just feels like,
yeah, that makes sense, it holds no weight, I guess I didn't realize that.
The banks can't use it, they're not gonna use it.
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't use it, I just didn't know if that could be a tool to rebuttal. You know, because you can always, right, if the appraisal gets cut, you can always say, hey, we want another appraiser to go out there, right? Because, I mean, that's
you
just one.
can, but not always will they use the higher appraisal. Sometimes they'll use the lower, sometimes they'll use an average, and that other one may come lower. And even if you have another appraisal, so I just did one a few months ago where my appraisal came back super low. Ben actually had just sold one, a few houses down, and I knew that it appraised fine, and I said, hey, can I see that appraisal? I rebutted the appraiser with some comps on his, because our homes were very similar, and the appraiser said, sorry, I'm not changing the thing.
Yeah, it's I feel like that's one of the weirdest processes in our industry, is the appraising.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
There's no rhyme or reason to it, and in my experience too, I had to sell this one home 3 times, appraisal kept getting cut. And it was one of those crossing community homes with a wood foundation, and the first appraiser came out And, I had like 12 offers, you know, on the first one, and they drove the bid up, and the appraiser called me when he got the order, saw the purchase agreement. And said, hey, is this a Crossman home? I said, yes. He said, it's never gonna appraise for that. And I said, well, how do you know that without having been out there and seen the home? At that point, I should have canceled it, but that appraiser got cut by 20 grand. So FHA deal, so I said, I think we can do better, because we had so much interest, and we had other offers that were conventional buyers, they just weren't as high as the FHA. So we went back on the market, second offer we took was a VA offer. That appraisal too got cut, this time by 12 grand, not 20. And I told my seller asked me again, he's like, what do you think? I was like, I think we can do better. So we went back on the market a third time. We were only taking cash or conventional at that point, but again, we got like another 8 offers a week later. And I kind of reached out to everybody that wouldn't offer previously, so some of them wrote, some new people came to the market wrote. And we went under contract with a conventional buyer. This time the appraisal only got cut by 5 grand. Still got cut, but this is before we were doing appraisal gap guarantees. This has probably been 8-9 years ago that this happened. And so my point is, within 3 weeks, there were 3 appraisals, and there was $15,000 disparities between all of that. There's 3 different opinions by 3 different people. So that's all an appraisal is one person's opinion about. The good ones are really good. Just like in agents, there's good and bad everywhere, right?
Luckily, I haven't had any
There's a,
crazy. I had a tiny cut on a Kinsmore house. Yes.
okay.
Yeah, they only got cut by 2 grand.
Oh, so, yeah. There's, and you'll, as you do, you'll see, you know, there's an appraiser. If I see a request come through for one of my properties, I say absolutely not. I decline it and decline it and decline it until they get tired of, and they hire somebody else, because I'm like, they will not.
How are you gonna do that? Do you cancel the, like, a showing time? Or
Yeah,
do you
I decline it. I define it with showing time. I call the lender and I say, I will not approve a showing from this appraiser. And sometimes they don't like it, but at the end of the day, I know that appraiser I've never seen an appraisal come in that value from that appraiser, and I just won't.
And then, I mean, who's expendable at this point, the lender or you? So, I mean, you can always say we can take our buyer to lender, I mean, your.
Yeah.
The buyer.
Most of the time, the lenders want the business, so they'll send out a new appraiser. They won't, I mean, if the appraisal appointment happens,
Right,
you're stuck.
Yeah.
So you have to catch that
You have to.
before the appointment happens, and you cancel, you communicate with the lender immediately. Like, no, we're not allowing that appraiser, so you can send somebody else out.
Do they ask, or do they just, are like,
They'll ask me, just tell them, like, they cut more appraisals than they find value, so we're not doing. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump back to the questions here. What are your conversion rates? Like the number of your conversion rate on,
You gotta track that stuff, right?
yep. So track your conversion rates. All the way down to how many contacts do I make to get an appointment?
Yeah, I'd be shooting from the hip to give you any numbers, so, but it's a numbers game. So I just know that I'm gonna hear a lot of no's before I hear a yes. And FSBOs are tough. Like, I was talking to somebody about this earlier, and I might prospect in 20 FSBOs and get 2. You know, so, and some of them, I'd say the majority of them aren't going to list in that first appointment. They're longer burns. I chased the FSBO down for a year, and she finally called me back after she quit responding to all my communication. It was a year later, the home was still in the market, it's the Pine Valley Golf Course. And she called me up. At that point, I was the first agent to reach out to her, and I was the last one to stay in communication with her. So I was the one that came to mind when she was motivated and ready to hire a professional. So I would say the follow-up is the most important thing. Aside from making that initial contact, it's just be consistent with your follow-up. So have a system and a plan and process in place to execute when you're prospecting the FSBOs or expires. Expires, like, man, you're either gonna get it or you're not. They tend to, some might wait 30 days, some might, hey, we're no longer wanting to sell, so we're just gonna pull it off and stay put for whatever period of time. But many of them go right back on the market in just a few days. So you have to be there ready to strike. And conversion rates on those, again, that's tough because there just aren't many expires these days. But in the past, better than FSBOs, I don't know, 1 in 10, 2 out of 10. But you're lucky there are 10 expires in a week.
What would you say, Heather? Do you know your conversion rates?
I'm called FSBO in a year. So I mean, I used to call FSBOs every single day. But within the last year, I've just kind of scaled back to, a lot of repeat and referral. So I would say I don't have a good conversion right now.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
After you ask them, no, are you connecting with some aggressive bank right now? And then you say, well, yes, I think, you ask them, from right in there. When's a good time for you to come by?
And get off the dang phone.
Yeah, the purpose of the phone call, never discuss your plan, your commissions over the phone. You'll talk yourself out of the appointment. Well, what do you charge? Well, I'm so glad that's important to you, and I'll make sure that's one of the first things we go over when we meet. The goal of every phone call is to get an appointment. And if the longer you're on the phone, and some people are talkers, you want to be a good listener, but don't talk yourself out of the appointment. When they start asking you questions about your process, what do you do? Hey, I'm so glad that's important to you. I'll make sure that's one of the first things we discuss when we meet.
That is such a punchline.
Yeah, I would add to that, yeah, as soon as you can get the appointment, and then my script is, okay, how does Tuesday at 2 work for you? Okay, it works perfectly, okay, great, I will see you Tuesday at 2. Again, this is my cell, if you need anything, let me know, but I will see you then, I think you have a great day. Get off the phone, because once you schedule the appointment, then people, if they start to chat, then you get into that, and you can go down rabbit holes. So get the appointment and get off the phone.
Yeah, they're going to my database. I want their name, phone number. I can collect an email address because I will send them a Google Calendar invite. And then the morning of the day of the appointment, that morning, I just send them a text reminder. Like, hey, looking forward to seeing you today at 2:30. Let me know if you have any questions before we meet.
Aaron, I assume you don't talk to them again before the appointment, you just do what you just said.
I text and email them. They get the email calendar invite,
Mhm.
and then they'll get a text, maybe a couple of texts.
You probably want to verify the appointment. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So is this part of your typical lead generation, or do you focus on them at certain times? I assume you meant daily, Derek, in that question?
If there was a better season for, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything in Vegas.
Yeah, I'd say just build a consistent schedule. I mean, when you talk about leads, listings and leverage, you need to have a lead generation plan. It needs to be on your calendar or it doesn't exist. So we do call time in the morning. I would get really defined with that. So if your call time is 3 hours, the first hour should be new leads. That could be, if you're running ads, it could be FSBOs, expires, anything that is showing up new that day. Second hour should be follow-up. And then the third hour could be sphere of influence. Those are care calls. Love on your clients, love on the people that already know you, like, and trust you. Yes.
After you said, so after you contact someone, they're like, oh, I'm not ready, what do you have in command or whatever you use? What's your, how much do you follow up? So follow up today, do you follow up a week, and then for the year, of course, you're not doing that every day, you're not reaching out to them every week, but how, what's the time? Like, so is it every day until they stop answering, then weekly, then monthly, or?
Once a week, for FSBOs and expires. But it could be daily until you get a response, until they answer the phone, until they call you back. I don't just call and leave a message and then wait a week. It would be, the frequency would be daily, and sometimes even twice a day, because if I call at 10 in the morning, they may be at work, and you might try again at 5:30 after work, or the evening, catch them there, because, if you're calling every day at the same time, they may be working and not be able to take a call. So don't be so rigid, you're not open to switching it up. Pick a Saturday morning. Like, I don't make calls generally, like prospecting calls on Saturday mornings. It's more friends and family, like sphere stuff, and agents. But Jeff Lover is a firm believer in going into the office and prospecting on Saturdays as well. So Saturday is a great time to check because typically they're not working.
You're good.
close the.
Was good. So is this part of your typical lead gen, or do you focus on certain times?
So, I mean, like I said, it's been a hot second, just because babies and craziness, but when I was, calling FSBOs, I was calling them every single day. And I agree with Aaron, don't be so rigid, that you can't call them at a different time, but I would say, there's something really important, I think, for us to get into habits and routines. And so to say like, okay, from 9 to 10, I call, make sure that you are honest with yourself and you're actually doing that, because the second that you start saying, okay, well, that's flexible, then it's like just not gonna happen. And I would say, if that's something that's really intimidating to you, then do it first thing in the morning, and do it, find somebody to hold you accountable to that too. Maybe you just back and forth. But I would say that that's huge, and eliminate any distractions. I worked with an agent one time that, I helped him make, physical calls, really how I learned to do it, and he would leave in the middle because he needed a snack, and I'd be like, no, if you need a snack, bring the snack in here, and then eat it in between calls, but like, you're not leaving for 10 minutes because you need to go get a coffee, like, it's just not happening. Because I also was like kind of commissioned on that, so I was like, we're making the calls. And so I would say, be consistent, make sure that you're doing it on a very routine basis. And to Aaron's point too, like, to be able to be consistent and call every day, like, you need that list in front of you. Doing it just on routine. So.
Very good. Thank you very much. And then that's a good point too, to make sure you stay focused in your lead gen time, because that's not a time you answer phone calls, you don't check your emails, you're not watching television.
When what happens, like, you go out, say you work from home, you go out and it's, somebody's in the kitchen and you chat, or you're in the office, and then, you go up and you chat with Isaac, and so all of a sudden 15 minutes of your hour lead gen is gone. It's like, well.
And then it takes you another 10 minutes to get back in the swing of things. So
Exactly.
you
Yeah,
just
so
lost your
really
lead gen time.
Right then, and do not get up late.
Right. So do you all discount your service to convert them? No, all right, that's all I'm saying. No, I'm writing that note down. Exclamation point after the no.
If they want to discount you for the consignment, I'm not that. I
Yeah.
spend too much money and too much time on, and that's what I justify. I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day that wanted me to discount. I said, if you want somebody to put it in the MLS, enlist it for you for 5%, absolutely, you can do that, but typically I find that if somebody's discounting their commission, that discount is coming somewhere. And a lot of times I see that be marketing, time that they're spending, on your listing. So absolutely you can do that. I'm just not gonna be that person for you. I'm gonna work really hard for you, and I'm gonna do a lot of marketing for your company.
Good. And I know some people come with the menu anyway, and that discount, say for this, you get this, for this, you get this, which is fine as well, if that's your business model. But
Yeah, there are incentives, right? So, the answer to discount is no. If I get somebody that's really, really pushing, they're looking for values, really what it comes down to is value, right? Is what they're charging or what they're asking for, is that equal the value that I'm looking for? And so the commission menu is perfect for that, because you get to choose based on the services that you want to need. And so I say no discount. However, there are 2 incentives in my commission menu that if you procure the buyer, Mr. FSBO or Mr. Seller, then I do offer a different commission structure. And if I procure the buyer and act as a dual or limited agent, there is a different commission as well. But the reality is 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. It's going to be 6 or 7%, depending on what you want and need. And if it's 5%, it's because I procured my own buyer. And if it doesn't come up, I'm not offering that. But if it comes up, then I will offer that as an incentive or an inducement to do business with me. You can look at that as a discount or not, but I would rather have 5% than no percent. If somebody else is offering a discount, I would rather have 5% than 3%. Which is all I get if another agent procures a buyer and brings them. So to me, it's still a win-win.
How about like if it's $1 million listing, Are you willing?
No, because that's reflective of what I'm spending.
Sure.
Like I said, the one that I've been under, contract with for years. I mean, I've got thousands and thousands of dollars in that marketing. Because now not only am I, putting it on the MLS, doing professional photography, and sending out some mailers, like now I'm doing professional photography, I'm doing aerial photography, I'm doing a video, I'm paying to market that to certain neighborhoods, I'm doing newsletters for certain neighborhoods, magazines, things that are just like above and beyond. So I would say like my ratio of spending is they're near the same. Yeah.
I have a different approach to that. So if you're trying to tap into that luxury market and get $1 million listings and you get out there in the appointment, they're wanting you to do a discount because somebody else is offering that. Again, defend your value, your marketing expenses are gonna be more, but I'm not saying don't offer a discount. Like, I would just ask them like, is that what it's gonna take for you to sign a contract with me here today? And if they say yes, and then I would come back and say, well, I'm willing to do it for $1 million listing for, let's say, 5 or 4%, whatever they're asking for. But I will only do it under the premise that before we close on your home, that I get at least one referral from you. And if I don't get that, then it's 6%. Does that sound fair? And if I get that referral from you and they end up listing with me as well, or using me to buy, then I'll offer that. I'll honor that.
So if they're selling, then.
Because the only way I can stay in business is if I make up this deficit here by getting repeat referral business.
I like that.
Does that make sense?
I'll do that.
Yes.
You just gotta remember, we're in the business for profit.
So.
Not closing,
Because again,
right?
because all that line in the sand, they may go with another luxury brokerage because they consistently do discount, right? So, but I'm willing to go there because I want to compete against them to get that business, so I might discount once. And that's so that I can tap into that market, I can have a success that I can celebrate, build some momentum, and then the next one, I'm not discounting. Don't make it a habit. So, when we're really transparent today, so you're gonna learn from our qualities, our missteps, and our mistakes. So 1 year comes to mind, I worked under a broker, a mentor of mine, who consistently offered discounts. And so I went back and reviewed my year in business and looked at every deal that we discounted. And I gave up $40,000 in commissions that year. And boy, would that have made a huge difference in my family. The answer is absolutely, would have made a tremendous difference in my ability to provide things for my family and just the lifestyle that we're trying to create and build. And so I made the conscious decision after that I'm going to increase my value because money is negotiable in the absence of value. So you need to develop a strong value proposition and be able to articulate that in an eloquent way to your clients that gets them to, they want to do business with you because of the value you bring to the table.
And I would say there's a myth there too, that other luxury agents are doing a lot of discounting. I mean, I have been plenty of deals with luxury agents where I saw that they got 7%, and so of course I got 3, but then on the settlement statement, I'm like, are you serious? Like they got 7 on this, very high property. And so I would also say that like, they don't want a discount either. So I wouldn't go into a listing thinking, oh, well, I need to get a discount to get this because I don't think that's true.
Aaron, I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Sure.
There's luxury, but then there's a price point underneath that. If you've given some type of discount with a contingency or referral, or when it's decided, and they were talking to their friends, and their friends on the list, how do you get in a conversation when their friends call and say, oh, I'm really bad at it?
Well, I'm gonna, with the first client, let them know like, hey, I'm only doing this for you. So with the conversation that we have here at the dining room table, or wherever that's at, needs to stay here. By the way, this is never over the phone. This is always, again, when we meet, conversation over there. And then the goal when I got an appointment is to always leave there with a signed contract. Now, it doesn't always happen the first appointment. It rarely happens with a FSBO, the first appointment. But when you're just going out and you're meeting with somebody who maybe it was an expired, maybe you found out through a friend that they want to list this high-end home and you were able to connect with them. When you go out there and meet, whatever conversation you have, it's like an attorney-client privilege relationship. You're letting them know, like, this stays here. I don't normally do this, but because I like you, I'm gonna give you the friends and family discount, between, right? I think most people will understand and respect that you're a business person. And, I mean, none of us are in business to lose money. We won't stay in business if we're breaking even, we're losing money, so. Have to be able to make it up. Even the investors I work with, you know, I do offer them, if they close 3 or more deals with me in a calendar year, then I will list them for 5%. And with that being said, I do expect them to refer their friends and family to me as well. So the one investor that I've worked with the longest, his family, like, I'm their agent exclusively. I don't discount them. It's just he reaps the benefit of that referral business. And it's based on value as well. So again, we're not a discount brokerage, and I would say certain clients, if they do a large volume of business with you, you want to incentivize them to keep that business with you.
Yeah, good, thank you. Have you worked with someone multiple times after converting them, FSBO or expired?
Very interesting.
Yeah, kind of already answered that one, yeah.
A lot of those actually then come back into this list.
Yeah, perfect. What's the biggest challenges when working with either one?
I think yourself. I think that we have a lot of limiting beliefs that people are this way or that way, and so I think very easily we can talk ourselves out of things before we even have a conversation. I recently heard I recently watched a video where an agent said it's like objections are good news because that means that they're still willing to have a conversation instead of just saying no. And I was like, that is such a great way to look at it, and that they're giving you opportunities to like solve problems. And so I think that we get all in our heads about like, okay, well, what if they say this? Like, what am I gonna say? And it's just like, we'll be a problem solver, like be a human and help them. And so I think that a lot of times we get everything ready and then we're like, okay, it's here to make the call. Okay, but it's overpriced already. Like, what's, you know, and so I would say that ourselves probably are the biggest obstacle.
I agree. I think get outside of your own head, because I think what holds us back, the greatest challenge of FSBOs expires is simply the fear of rejection. I think if you can get outside your own head and get over that, and know that, hey, I'm adding value, I'm helping people solve problems and helping them transition from one stage of life to the next, then there's going to be people out there that they want and they need that from you, and they're going to do business with you. But you just have to show up and be authentic and match and mirror their own energy, their body language, the cadence in which they speak. You don't want to come in talking real fast and be really excited, and they're like soft spoken and their words are drawn out. You want to know your audience, and you can try to match and mirror the way they're communicating with you in order to make them feel at ease and feel comfortable.
If they talk really fast, you talk about it.
Yeah, they talk fast, you want to talk. I mean, match their energy.
Yeah.
Match their energy.
Yeah, good. Any other questions for the panel? Zoomers, any other questions? Yeah, that was a good panel. At the end of the day, I think it goes back to knowing your value, which is going to be huge, particularly going forward.
I don't think I'll ever forget this. We're doing script practice. And I remember saying, I think it was actually, okay. Who thinks that? I think it was actually Aaron and Caleb. I think we were all doing script practice one day, and I think Caleb said to me, well, you just need to like know your value. And I remember saying, okay, but like, do I actually, like, if it's a FSBO and they can sell it on their own, and maybe they can do it for cheaper, like, am I bringing value? Or am I just trying to make money? And since then, I think it's been so apparent in situations that I've been in. And again, just looking at stats, that agents do bring sellers more money, and agents do sell homes faster. And then I've also seen since then, so many agents that do not know what they're talking about, agents that miss deadlines, agents that don't know contracts, agents that throw photos up with their phone, that misspell words, that throw a sign in the yard that's like blowing in the wind, like from the poster board. And I look at all those things now and I say, of course I bring value. There is not an agent that can work harder for this than the seller than I can. I know that I'm gonna bring value. I know that I'm gonna be honest and authentic. And so I think that there are things that we have to work through within ourselves too. And sometimes it takes other people's stories or our own experiences to realize that like we do bring so much value. But you know, you do a transaction with an agent that just doesn't know what they're talking about, and you say, I do, I find a lot of value. And so I think that that's huge, to just, like you said, know your value. And that's hard to do sometimes. So sometimes it just takes like inner reflection, like, why do I do what I do? What value do I absolutely?
And that's going to be a focus of a lot of classes we have coming forward is, of course, understanding the BAA. We're going to understand that at a high level. Because, you know, as we all know, July 1st is required to have a buyer contract before you show the first house. And we're also going to have classes on how to have a high level listing presentation and a high level buying presentation. So you show your value at that high level. That's super important. Not only can you articulate your value, but you have it in print to leave. And I think we had that conversation the other day. Some people like, well, I'm just so much better at talking. You know, sometimes if I leave them stuff, they just throw it away. I'm like, sometimes, yes, but there's the people that are going to look at that thing and think this person was prepared. They came to me ready to go, and they're going to be, even if they take that and then throw it in the trash can, their mindset right now is Heather's prepared. And I like that.
I won listings simply because of that.
Yeah.
I won't mention any names, but I went up against multiple agents. And then I came not only with my listing presentation, but comps. I prepared net sheets, best and worst case scenarios, and leave that whole packet. They may throw it away, but a lot of times they sit there and they flip through that after you leave, and they're thinking about, especially husbands and wives, are going to be comparing the agents. Well, they came in and they did their homework. They had all this ready. This agent just came in and talked to us. I really like them. But we're talking about, you know, one of the largest investments people make in their life. Who do we trust is going to get the job done and get us to the closing table with the least amount of hassle, the most amount of money? So we have to bring our A game every time.
Yeah, I reflect back when I was selling my house in Kentucky to move up here. The agent that sold my house was she has a $20 million team. She's actually coming here Tuesday to teach at the team meeting. She'd been an ALC member for me every year I was down there. I just called her, told her you're going to sell my house. She's a friend of my wife as well. She came to our house, had an appointment, brought her a listing presentation. She brought the comps. She told us everything she was going to do to market the house. She told us how she was going to put the signs in the yard, told us all the Facebook posts. She told everything she was going to do, even though I already knew it. I already knew her. She already had the business, right? Yeah. So, but she still came down and brought all that and went through each piece of paper with Devin and I. Yeah. Even though there was no competition, I wasn't calling anybody else to list the house. She was going to do it. If she just came in and brought a sign and asked me to sign something, that was fine. But she sat down, did everything, because it's the professional way to do things, in my opinion. It's being prepared.
And then how, I mean, obviously then, even because she did that, I felt like she went above and beyond. So I'm sure if somebody called you and said, who do I list my house with in Kentucky, you could say her.
Right.
100%.
And I'll
If
even-
she would have come in and just thrown a sign in the yard, you may not have felt that way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, coaching me kicked in on her because she said, well, you're my team leader and help me out so much, I'll do it for 5%. And I said, nope. I said, you don't give discounts. I said, nope, you're not doing it. So I'm paying you 6%. And I actually had an argument with her to give her more money. She's like,
I also would say, like, don't be discouraged if you leave and you don't feel like it went well, or you feel like I should have got, I should have got something signed, because I've left plenty of appointments. I'm, Aaron said that he doesn't leave without, trying to get something signed. I'm a little bit opposite. I don't want anybody to ever feel too pressured, and maybe a little bit too full. But a lot of times won't ask for signature right then, and then all my wife will call me and be like, okay, can you send the papers, like, what do we need to sign? And so I would say, like, don't be discouraged, don't beat yourself up, even if people don't call you, just follow up and follow up. I think the stat is like 8 times is what it takes to sometimes convert somebody.
yeah, well, 7. The average is 7. Yes, you're right on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a BNI group, and that's pretty standard like across the board. So it's totally not just like, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And any other questions on Zoom? Wait, Heather, what do you do if you don't get them to sign right then? She just answered that question, Boone, I think, so we're good.
Maybe.
It's follow up. Fortune's in the follow up. That should be in everybody's sticker on their laptop. Anything else? I know we're a little over time. I appreciate you guys coming out for this class. This is actually a really good class. I'm kind of surprised the room isn't full, but I understand people have things to do. And what I'll do to that is I have to say bold, 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 bold. Aaron's future's bright. Yeah.
I hate it, and I love it at the same time.
Mhm.
So it makes me do things that I don't know I should be doing. I love this.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly. Bold.
Were you able to get a hold of Logan? I sent you his contact.
I sent it to him.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
sent him information. Yeah.
Right.
So if anybody ever has questions about that, that's not signed up for bold. I'm not staring at anybody in particular. It's not signed up yet. Okay. Just yeah.
One already, but I am saying, I don't want to, my husband's on me about it, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll go pop a balloon before you leave. So one thing I do want to say, and it's part of the culture that I like to create, especially with top agents. And I think everybody in this room wants to be a top agent. Is there anybody here that does not want to be a top agent? Raise your hand. Are we sure? Okay, so everybody here wants to be a top agent. What their mindset is a top agent. I'm not saying $200 million a year, but what they feel like is a top agent. As Aaron alluded to earlier, your calendar is your lifeline, right? Your calendar is your lifeline, which means what you should do as soon as you see the education calendar, pick things that you want to do. I'm not saying take every class we have. Pick something you want to do. You want to do this. I know I want to go to this meeting. I know I want to go to this class. Put it in your calendar and do it. If somebody calls and says, hey, I want to go look at a house at 10:30 on Thursday morning. I'm sorry, I've got an appointment at that time. Can we do it at? Does that make sense?
And guess what? You look better when you have appointments, then you're like, my entire day is open. They're like,
Yeah.
wow, why?
Right. Yeah. I'm free from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Again, full transparency, there have been times that I've been like, well, I can do 10:30, but I can do 11, even though I like totally could do 10:30. I just like want to look like I'm busier than I am.
Right.
I feel like people like that, but
Well, when you do that, you know that you're respecting your time and the person's time you have an appointment with, so they know that you're going to respect their time. Does that make sense? So, and if you have a haircut at 11 o'clock, that's an appointment. You don't say, I can't make it have a haircut. Then they're going to go and call somebody else.
She had a her cringe, it was myself, like, can't keep concept.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
things on our calendar,
Mhm.
we're like, okay, shoot, well, I should, because like, what if they go somewhere else? But guess what? They're not.
Mm.
They're not.
Right. And I'll tell you, this business, you do learn by experience, but you also learn a lot in this room, listening to people who are super awesome, like Aaron and Heather and all the great questions that we had from everybody. This is another way we learn, and this is something that our company does that other companies don't at a high level, because we share how we succeed with other people. Right. And that's why we're a big family, as opposed to a company full of people who are out to get each other. And that might be a harsh way to state it, because not necessarily saying it, but we're not cutthroat for each other. I'm sorry. It's not harsh, because, you know,
That being said, I have a FSBO and expired guide I'd be willing to share with anybody.
Yeah.
That would all want to see it.
thank you, thank you, thank you. So I understand we have things to do, but if there's a class, if you're sitting at home and there's a class on the calendar, I would advise you to be here. Does anybody disagree with that? I mean, no matter what the class is. I understand we have lives and family. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to show that education is important in this business. Getting coached is important in this business. But you also have to work your business. All right. So, but thank you guys so much.